Let's have a pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ned, are you doing this, or am I doing this?
No, we'll just kind of go back and forth.
Okay, sounds good.
So do roll call for Flagstaff Valley Fire. Should I be doing this as Western Lane Fire Readiness Authority? Or
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
You will.
So we'll do establish a quorum.
Director Polisi?
Yes.
Director Spade?
Yes.
Director Hickson?
Yes.
Director Green?
Here.
Director Burns?
All right, let's take a roll call, please. Western Lane Ambulance.
Director Gasney? Director Russell? Here. Director Farnsworth?
Here.
Director Webb?
Yes.
Director Murphy?
Here.
And then a roll call for Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority.
So,
Director
wait
Green.
a second. Since WLFEA doesn't have a quorum, Western Lane needs to appoint.
I think we do have a quorum. Do we
No,
need
Rick.
4?
Yeah,
Okay.
quorum's 4.
All right. Okay, as acting president, vice president, I'll nominate Mike Webb to serve this evening as adjunct board member.
Okay.
Okay.
Director Green?
Here.
Director Hickson?
Here.
Director Webb?
Yes.
Director Farnsworth?
Yes. Okay, we have an agenda in front of us. I'll make a motion on behalf of Western Lane Ambulance District to seek approval of the agenda.
Second.
I move to approve.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Director Russell? Yes. Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
Director Webb?
Yes.
Director Murphy?
Yes.
Also like to get a motion for approval of the agenda items tonight.
Make a motion for the agenda, approve it.
Second.
And roll call vote, approval of the agenda.
Director Polisi?
Yes.
Director Spade?
Yes.
Director Hickson?
Yes.
Director Green?
Yes. And well, also, okay, I'd like to approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. Roll call vote for approval of the agenda for Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority.
Director Green?
Yes.
Director Hickson?
Yes.
Director Webb?
Yes.
Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
At this point, this is where we have public comment. This is the opportunity for public to speak to the board of directors. The maximum time for public comment will be 30 minutes, and 3 minutes will be allotted for each speaker. Is there anyone who would like to speak or offer public comment? Oh, come on. Who do you want to say something? Okay, being as there is no public comment, we'll move on. And the public comment session is closed. Has everyone had an opportunity to look over the minutes on the fire board? And,
So what we'd like to do with the minutes, since it's 1 minute
yeah,
for all 3 agencies,
yeah.
if you could discuss among each agency that you're going to approve the minutes, because then we have to go back and reapprove if somebody asks for a change. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah. So before you approve the minutes, make sure that everybody's okay with them.
Yeah.
All three.
everybody's okay.
I will say it because I was not here.
Okay. We have no problem with minutes.
Any changes to the minutes?
No. I think by default that will also mean to Western Lane Fire and EMS Authorities.
Perfect, thank you.
So could I get a motion for approval of the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes for Flagstaff Valley Fire Review.
Second.
Okay, so we have a second for the approval of minutes. Get a roll call vote.
Director Polisi?
Yes.
Director Spade?
Yes.
Director Hickson?
Yes.
Director Green?
Yes.
I get a motion to approve the Western Lane Ambulance District minutes for the meeting December 19th.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Director Russell? Yes. Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
Director Webb?
Abstain.
Director Murphy?
Yes.
Asking for a motion to approve the combined meeting minutes on behalf of Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion, is there a second? Motion and second. Roll call vote.
Director Green?
Yes.
Director Houston?
Yes.
Director Webb?
Abstain.
Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
Chief, I would like us to say to the two board chairs, presidents, I'm not surfing Facebook. My computer's dead, so I'm using the app on my phone. So just so you know.
Sure.
So was cat.
I was watching cat videos actually.
Can we get a roll call on that?
Okay, that will bring us to the review of the monthly financials.
Good evening, everyone. So a couple of follow-up items from last month. Director Yesney asked about the property and liability insurance on the budget versus actual report. That insurance policy is a calendar year, so we've just received the invoice to be paid by March 1st, so next month you will probably see an expense there. The prepaid insurance item number 1305 on the balance sheet is actually the prepaid medical insurance that comes out of payroll every month. In addition, he asked about the Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority expenses, and he would like to see a budget on the line item in the financials. And tonight we are going to be looking at a resolution that fixes that issue. So both Western Lane and SBFR will have a section in that resolution to move money out of personnel services into materials and services for that reason. And I'll go over that more when we get to the resolution. So moving on the financials, 6 months in, we should be tracking at about 50%. You will see some of those line items that I just mentioned are off, but once we make these transfers, that will fix those issues. I also wanted to mention, I was absent at last month's meeting, but I noticed that when I watched the meeting that you did take roll call votes on the approval of the financials. At the October meeting, I knew that we had talked about it at a prior meeting, and at the October 24th meeting, we had actually decided that we would not take roll call votes. What I am doing is I am presenting the financials to you each month, and you're welcome to ask questions, and I can answer those questions. But since the financials are never definite until they are audited, it's more or less just I'm presenting the financials, and you don't need to take action to roll call approve them. I'll present them, and then once everybody's satisfied with their questions, we just move on
Do
to.
we still take action on the transaction?
No.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yes. We budgeted in Sisal Valley and Western Lane annual transfers into the capital reserve accounts. And a long time ago, we talked about doing that at the month of December. So I did make those transfers in December, and I also made the LifeMed transfer of $145,000 out of LifeMed into the general fund last month. The ground emergency medical transport GEMT payment that we received for 2018 was received at the end of December in the amount of $71,089. That is, didn't we say that 25,000 was not
19,000.
19,000? So we're bringing in close to 50,000 on that program. The audit for Sisal Valley is done, and the audit for Western Lane is still being worked on. It should be done next month, and Mark Housen, our CPA, will present them both at a future meeting. And I also wanted to mention that there is at least one opening on each budget committee for Sisal Valley and Western Lane. I'm going to be doing a press release, public service announcement for trying to recruit some interest in being on the budget committee. If anyone knows of anyone, feel free to ask around, because we will be, probably not at the February meeting, but at the March meeting. Hopefully we will have a few interested applications, and the board will appoint one person to each budget committee. This is because Director Murphy was on the Western Lane Budget Committee, and now he's a board member, and same with Director Polisi, becoming board members. That's all I have to report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
On the Western Lane, I noticed forest and foreclosure revenue, is that a once a year stipend? Because
That's a, we never know.
okay.
That we don't budget it, and that's,
This is the second time I've seen it since,
right, that just pops up out of the blue whenever it comes through.
and that was significant, so. Maybe 7,000.
I have a couple of questions. I'm just looking for information. Starting with the Slatersville Valley Fire, I noticed there's construction in progress on the balance sheet. You guys in fact have construction in progress?
So that is on the balance sheet for Sykesville Valley.
Yeah. I think we have the same line item for Western Lane, but.
What number is that?
That's number 1750.
I'm sure Western Lane
I am.
District Board Director.
It's going to come down to the same question at the next page. I just wonder.
Those are under fixed assets, and those are from the prior year's audit. I do not deal with those numbers. Those get adjusted when I get the journal entries following the audit.
Okay, so we have the same number, 56,000. So if you could help us understand that, that would be great. I don't know what that is.
I will ask the auditors about that.
And then a second question I had, the LifeNet transfer occurred in December?
Yes,
Okay, so on our Western Lane balance sheet, it shows as of December 31, 206,000 in the LifeNet fund balance.
hold on.
That's line.
Which
30.
report are you on?
I'm on the balance sheet for Western Lane.
That's a negative number.
That's a what?
Negative number.
Okay. It's a liability, right? So it's a liability. What is the liability?
You're on the balance sheet or
Yeah,
the?
I'm on the balance sheet.
Okay, that is on a different report. What line item is
It's
that?
line 3020.
It's that one. Again, these are amounts that are provided by the auditors,
Okay.
so I will check on both of those.
Or maybe when he comes, you can help us understand
Right.
it, because whether it's an asset or liability, I was confused why it would be there.
All right.
And Dean, on budget versus actuals on page 22, account 4250, it says reimbursements, and we show income of 12,300. What are those doing?
I'd have to do a report on that, because a lot of times if we invoice, like if we invoice each other, we have that line item coming in to reimburse, but I can expand that number.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So, another question on line 5300, we have WLEFA personnel services, and then down at 7600, we have IGA, WLEFA materials and services. So is that just the breakdown between payroll and
Correct.
non-payroll?
When the budgets were adopted July 1, it was with the IGA.
Right.
And then the Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority was created. And
Okay.
so then it became 7,600 is the dollar amounts that each district has dispersed to the authority for operational, to make payments. Again, these resolutions will make that a lot cleaner.
Okay. And then my last question, I'm looking at the LifeNet P&L, and thank you for working so hard on that. I see the transfer out of LifeNet to general, and together and talk about this. The 145,000 should be offsetting the total expenses. So really the net income or net loss to Lifeman would be the difference, I think, between the 145 and the 120.
So these, the 145 and there are, if you see the small negative amount right next to the dollar sign, those are negative amounts. What I will do with these reports is put parentheses around those numbers so we know.
Right.
Is that what you're asking about?
Well, we had did we have 145,000 in life net income?
Yes.
Okay, and then we spent 120,787, right?
Well, the 145, a lot of that came in last fiscal year, so there's going to need to be a journal entry, a journal entry on 6/30 and then probably a reversal on 7/1 to bring that money into that carryover.
Right. But just from the standpoint of creating like the Excel spreadsheet we spoke about, in a practical manner, we had income of 145,000 and expenses of 120.
Well,
So
but
far.
I guess, let me retract what I just said, because by the end of the fiscal year, you will have more income because
Right.
we get the majority of the income in June.
Right.
So then this report doesn't look very pretty right now, but at the end of the fiscal year, it's going to show the true picture.
Yeah.
Am I following you with what you're asking?
Yes, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll come visit with you.
Okay,
It's confusing.
This is a big improvement, and we're getting very close.
okay, good.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Questions on fire side?
And we can move on to new business. Oh, there's no. Okay. Sure.
Okay, new business. Discuss roll call votes.
So it's just, staff has been talking about this, it's just our interest to have each agency do the same thing. It's absolutely not required, of course. We were thinking that roll call votes by Western Lane were a requirement. There's nothing that we can find. I think it was just a decision by Western Lane Board at one time to say they will always do roll call votes. And I know SJFR has, you've been doing roll call votes as well. You can request that at any time to have a roll call vote. If you would like to do just a voice vote, we do record who votes yes, who votes no, so it is recorded in the minutes. But you don't have, unless you call for a roll call vote, you don't have to do it. So it's entirely up to the board what you'd like to do going forward. Like maintain roll call votes, we'll do that. If you just want to do it as you call for them, we can do that. So we're flexible.
To me, it seems like, unless we're talking about something important, that, so the roll call vote, other than that, I think just doing all those in favor, anyone opposed, unless we're talking about something, critical. I know in the beginning, we kind of started that. I know that
Sure.
Western Lane has always done the roll call, so what are you guys feeling on that?
Well, from my understanding, it dated back before my time that it was president, and I was led to believe that it was statutory because we were a health district. I'm unable to find anything too, and I looked into the Constitution, the original Constitution of Western Lane Ambulance, and it just states meetings will be run as directed, but I can't find any minutes that say why a roll call, but it must have
And that's what we did.
in the 1980s somewhere. So I think we could change that if we want to.
Entirely.
And the only thing I saw is each vote had to be recorded, so as long as we're recording our names, so I think we're good.
We do that.
I think in the case of, where one side or the other feels that they would like a roll call vote, then we can discuss and we can all do the same thing. Otherwise, we would just do all those in favor, anyone opposed.
It's hard to get out of the routine of saying roll call.
I think any member of any board can call for a roll call vote, right?
Yes.
So, Cindy, do you have any feelings? What's the history? You about?
I don't know about the history, but, so you're essentially doing a roll call anyway, because if I vote no and the rest of them vote yes, you still have to write down.
Correct.
So you're doing a roll call anyway, so what's the difference?
I think it's just a little faster because you're essentially waiting to hear if there's an opposed. Otherwise, it's just, it's a unanimous vote as opposed to going,
Well, if we have no governing constitution about roll call votes, we don't even need a motion to change during the new procedure.
That's correct.
Right. Roll call on that question? Okay with everybody?
So last couple of meetings, we've talked about what we're going to do with the property across the street. I think long-term, we don't think that we're going to build a new ambulance base. We're very happy with the ambulance space, the location where it is. I'm not asking for a motion to sell that property or anything like that. It's just, if the board desires to move in that direction, we would contact several realtors, get an assessment on the property, see what the worth is, come back to the board and say, this is what we're looking at.
Just a point, we already have a realtor of record, and that's Andy Johnson, unless we want to go back and.
Yeah, we can certainly do that, yeah.
So a suggestion would be to go to Andy and ask him for suggestions, pricing, that kind of thing, see what we can do.
Or alternatively, we can wait. I know we're going to be doing a strategic plan review in a couple months.
Whatever your pleasure is.
Whatever the board would like to do.
when is the last time we did like a real estate
Appraisal.
look at the appraisal of that, what it's worth and what is, how it sits on the market? When was the last time we did anything like that?
Probably 2010, 11.
Point of legal order, if Siuslaw Valley or Western Lane Ambulance's discussion about a specific item for their district, the other board should not interject during the conversation.
Fine, Jim.
Well, I do think Chief makes a valid point. We have our strategic plan process coming up. So, you know, if we sell it without doing some planning, then
What? Yeah, I don't, yeah. Getting to the point where we sell it, I think we'll wait several months at the earliest. If we just want to have, this is what he thinks it'd be worth, our realtor thinks it's worth, we
It
can
would
do
be
that.
nice to have that information before we start our strategic planning, so.
I'll contact him and see what we can do. You can handle number 6? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know anything about it.
It's not your job. Coming to the agenda item for narcotic or controlled substance safe upgrades, it's a capital expense of $13,753. We do have the room in capital, it's not budgeted, and where this is stemming from is several EMS countries throughout, EMS agencies throughout the county has been faced with irregularities in how they manage their controlled substances. And so, of course, when our brothers and sisters are faced with potential DEA fines and OSHA fines and all the fines that come along with not in good practice or best practices, we internally looked at our own and we evaluated it and said we're not at best practice to the standards. So the agenda item is directed to that, and we're asking for permission due to the amount that the board accepts it so we can move forward with the project.
So I read this, and what do we have in place now that we have gun safes?
We have portable gun safes that we have bolted into the medic units, but there's no way of doing a two-factor check with it. For DEA standards, you have to have 2 personnel checking off narcotics, and so that's what we're mainly trying to get to compliant with, and also that everything will be into a system where I can go into it, or the captains can go into it and look at what has been done, and we have 100% compliance to DEA standards.
So how does this new system keep track of that?
All through the database.
And
It's
how
all
is that stored? Is that in the vehicle itself, or is it
No, it's stored on our server.
on your service?
I'm sure it'll be linked through it to our server.
So there's a cellular connection or something, so if they're.
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi.
Right, when we get back into Wi-Fi range too, and we're looking at upgrading our Samsungs to iPads, so we'll have hotspots that they'll be integrated with that as well.
I see. So whatever happens in the field, 2 people accessing the narcotic, that data is downloaded when you get back.
Yes, exactly. The only one that is actually robust will be the one in our main storeroom, and that one will be definitely bolted and secured because it'll house our main inventory of narcotics, whereas the other ones will be more portable. They're not designed to be, because anybody, even our gun safes that we have that are housing narcotics, can actually be pried out and taken away. That's not the purpose. The purpose for accountability of our employees of it.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve expenditure to upgrade EMS controlled substance safe.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Good idea.
On this item, I'll ask for a roll call.
Roll call. Director Russell?
Yes.
Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
Director Webb?
Yes.
Director Murphy?
Yes.
Let's see.
All right, so the resolution, I'll start with Cecil Valley's resolution 2020-01. So the first item is the PERS unfunded liability, which was, well, actually the PERS Employer Incentive Fund. So the board of directors agreed to do this, and the only money that we had available to fund this was the money that we were transferring from the general fund into the capital replacement fund. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking that money and appropriating it to the personnel services line item to cover this expense. So that's the first appropriation transfer on the resolution. The second one is what I was talking about earlier, and that's moving money out of personnel services into materials and services for the Western Lane Fire EMS Authority. So when I look at materials and services, I look at that line item as WLFEA is an administrative service for the two districts, similar to like a Cardinal employee, or you're paying, or even though you're paying wages and benefits, it's a service that we are providing. So it is not in personnel services, it is in materials and services, if that makes sense. So I am taking the money for, that was budgeted originally out of operations for, and this is for benefits for the employees that were in, for Chief Dickerson out of operations, and for the remaining amount of the budget for Chief, myself, and the administration and the CSTs, taking those dollars amounts out of personnel services and putting them into the materials and services line item, which is that $7,600. And then, so is there any questions on that? Are you following me on that? Okay. Then, in October, the board of directors approved the replacement of the fire and EMS chief vehicle, the Durango, in the amount of $44,955. And since that was not a budgeted item, we are going to take that money out of capital replacement and put that into capital outlay to cover that expense. And on the reverse side, I just did a summary of the budget, beginning, the transfers, and the end. And as you can see, the bottom line does not change. We're just moving money from one category to another. So if you do not have any questions, you could take action on this resolution.
Would you mind just providing, excuse me, a budget refresher on, is capital replacement at all divided into equipment, apparatus, building?
Yes, if you see on your balance sheet,
On the back. The next page.
yes, that's true. So at the end of the resolution, you can see the dollar amounts. We started the fiscal year with 105 in each account, And then we budgeted the $3,000 transfer into the capital replacement and $100,000 into capital improvement. So I'm using that 300 from capital replacement for the PERS payment and for $44,955 for the replacement vehicle.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yeah, that's fine.
So the capital improvement fund balance is not affected. That just remains the same.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the appropriation transfer?
No.
And we do need to do this.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2020-01, outlining the appropriations and budgetary changes.
Second.
Second. This one I'd like to do roll call on. Can I get a roll call vote?
Director Polisi?
Yes.
Director Spade?
Yes.
Director Nixon?
Yes.
Director Green?
Yes.
Then for Western Lane Ambulance Resolution 2020-01, we have the GEMT amount that when we started this program, there was a fee, administrative fees of $19,606 that was not covered. And so that we needed to spend that money out into this program. And since that was not a budgeted item, I am requesting to move that $19,606 out of contingency into materials and services to cover that expense. And then the second thing was when I worked on the budgets, I neglected to budget the 6% employer paid pickup, which is the IAP. And so realizing that during that budget time, there was a lot of things going on. We were looking at IGA budgets, we were looking at WLFEA, the possibility of WLFEA, and it was just something that I forgot to do. I was very concentrating on making sure that we had the PERS, the regular PERS amount, because there was a change as of July 1. So I was really focused on that, but this just slipped through the cracks. So I realized it, and so I'm requesting a transfer of $92,945 out of contingency into personnel services to cover that. And then the third item is, again, the same thing that we were doing with Sayula Valley, is transferring. It was set up a little bit different in Western Lane because Western Lane was paying 50% of the IGA. So if you look in your financials, you can see that there's like $42,000 that was already expended for July, August, and September to cover those costs when we still had the IGA. But as of October 1, then we transfer into WLFEA. So the balance that was budgeted for the IGA is the $136,000 that I'm transferring out, as well as the remaining amount, the 9 months of budget for Chief House and Hawley. To those two amounts come out and get put into that line item at the 7,600 account. So that will clean up the IGA, Western Lane Fire and EMS budget lines, and so you will see that will be a lot cleaner next month on the financials.
That's just because we are now buying a service instead of having you employed, and the money will go into personnel services on the authority side.
Right.
And then just a refresher on the GMET or whatever it is, that's a program where we actually get more money back for investment in the business.
They paid us back $70,000
It's
until we cleared $50,000.
like a lottery ticket, we win.
But yeah, it's just the reimbursements. We should have actually gotten more from Medicaid, and that it's the federal match that's come down.
Is that the explanation as to why Medicaid is so much higher this year than what we budgeted on the receipts, or is it just the way it's...
We're more accurately tracking which
Okay.
is supposed to be in.
All right, I'd make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Director Russell? Yes. Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
Director Wynn?
Yes.
Director Murphy?
Yes.
Do you need the IGA? Or you want me to?
Oh, go ahead.
I don't have a copy of it in front of me, but at the last meeting, Director Murphy requested that we eliminate the previous IGAs, so I just made this very simple, that the districts, we start with Sayula Valley first, that the IGA became incorporated with revisions into the Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority as of October 1, and that that IGA supersedes and nullifies any prior IGAs pertaining to shared resources, and therefore all previous IGAs with Western Lane are hereby terminated. So we need an action to approve.
Any questions on that?
None.
Yeah. So if I could get a motion to approve the termination of the previous IGA.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2020-02, a resolution terminating IGAs with Western Maine Ambulance District.
Second. Second. And I would like to have a roll call also on that.
Director Felici?
Yes.
Director Spade?
Yes.
Director Higgson?
Yes.
And Director France?
Yes.
Okay, we have the Western Lane Ambulance Resolution 2020-02, a resolution terminating IGAs with Sayula Valley Fire and Rescue. Is there any discussion? I receive a motion.
I move we approve resolution 2020-02, resolution to terminate IGAs with Sayula Fire and Rescue.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I was expecting John to do it just because this is his idea.
Any discussion?
I thought we'd share the wealth.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Director Russell?
Yes.
Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
Director Wynn?
Yes.
Director Murphy?
Yes.
Okay, looks like we're up to the Division Chief of Operational Report, or Chief Report.
Yeah,
I apologize.
That's okay. So our last meeting, we were talking about, and this goes for SDFR, representative on the Urban Renewal Committee. And Director Felici decided he couldn't do that. So I was talking to Mayor Henry, and he said that John Scott is willing to serve on the board. And the question was, could he serve as fire department representative? He's a former director. I think he has our best interest at heart. But it would be up to the board. If you guys are okay with that, then I'll pass that on to Mayor Henry. Okay.
Yeah, he was our previous rep as well.
Somebody left their trunk open across the street, the back end is still open on the vehicle.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have this is for SDFR, we have a civil service commission that consists of 3 citizens. And we're supposed to meet at least annually, and they haven't met for a couple of years, so we're resurrecting that commission. We've talked to 3 board members. It is John Eggar and Abe Bernard, and I forget the third.
Robin Mills.
Robin Mills. John and Abe are willing to continue to serve on the Civil Service Commission. Robin does not want to, so at some point we're going to have to appoint a 3rd member to the Civil Service Commission. And all their terms have expired anyway, so you'll have to reappoint Abe and John as well. So we'll probably be doing, at the same time we're doing notice for the budget committee, we'll do it for civil service commission members as well. So if you know somebody who'd like to be on the civil service commission, and this is for, by law, all firefighter positions have to be run through civil service. And it's just, I think it's division chief and below have to be run through a process, and we have guidelines that we've adopted. So you'll be hearing more about that. For WLFEA, we are in the process of designing how we're going to replace the mobile crisis response unit. You got my email earlier that it was totaled. Luckily, nobody was hurt. But we are in the process of trying to figure out how we're going to replace that. The county has no other vehicles that they want to give us. We are looking at what the state might have available in a motor pool. And I'm working with Chief Turner with the police department about that. We're still waiting to see what our insurance settlement is going to be on that. And we've been talking to the Ford dealer here about what used vehicles he might have for that. So we'll be hearing more about that. And for all board members, next Monday at our brown bag seminar, the topic's going to be on the quick response unit. So if you have any interest in hearing more about that, come and do. We supply cookies and water. So bring your own lunch, but if you want to hear more info, certainly you're welcome there.
Could you make that just bread and water?
Gluten-free bread.
There'll be glasses of water, not milk.
Bring your own thermos.
So Peace Health just offered to us for Western Lane. Peace Health just offered tuition scholarship for their, it is called their integrated nutrition training. And it's a year's worth of training, 5 to 10 hours a week, mostly online. So it's completely free to us. And Chief House and I were talking about that would fit in very well with our MIH program. And Wendy is willing to do that, so she's going to be becoming nutritionally trained. I don't know what certificate it is at the end, but it's run throughout the whole Peace Health system. So that was nice of them to offer that. The last thing for SCFR, I received a call last week from Oregon OSHA, and it's one of those things where they really do want to help us on things. A little surprise. We are on a list this year to potentially be inspected, and you're on the list every 3 or 4 years. The list is too big to get to everybody, but they made us an offer to have an inspector come out. There's no enforcement actions that will be taken, but they're going to do an inspection to see how we are. I think it's a great opportunity they look at our training records, and with changes in our training that we've undergone in the last couple of months, it'll be a good opportunity to see where we stand. So that'll be a week from tomorrow. We'll have an inspector come out for a couple hours and look at how we're doing safety-wise and hazard mitigation. So we'll be looking forward to that.
I got a question on that.
Sure.
Do they look at the previous ISO rating as well and take into consideration what ISO did? Number one. Number two, do they look at rolling stock, PPE, everything?
I think they look at everything. I don't know about ISO. I wouldn't expect them to look at ISO.
Okay.
I don't think so.
But we do have that report available if they ask for it, correct?
Yes, we do. That's all I have. Chief report.
Does everybody know what ISO means?
Insurance Service Organization. It's a rating of fire departments.
I just wondered.
Bogus system.
Sorry, I should have explained that a little bit.
No, that's okay.
They rate fire districts
Right.
and it impacts
And I think it impacts
some homeowners insurance.
Yeah, it does.
It's hard to find out which insurance companies actually use that.
There's still some that actually use zip codes.
Yeah?
I think that's more accurate, fire loss per zip code. But it is important to at least maintain your ISO rating.
You start, I'll take it. So, in the board meeting, we added the end of service year, and I know it's a lot of information. There's like 40 pages combined for both the years, but the goal was to show you call volumes and breakdowns on Monday through Saturday through Sunday, what times are falling, just to give you an idea. Overall, though, per calendar, we ran 3,843 calls, which was again higher than any other year that we ran. The blurry number, which is why we're looking at the QRU, is we had 1,200 plus no transports, and of course, no transports equals no money. And so what can we do to be more efficient? That's where the QRUs come up as conversation. And then the other one, our transfer volume, again, continues to increase, interfacility transfer volume. Our ASA, do you have any questions on?
Some of the transfers, when you hear them called out all the way to Providence, and it takes people out of the district for a long time.
A minimum of about 8 hours. And this week alone, we had literally 3 days in a row of it. It really depends on the healthcare system.
What's the reason that they're sending them up there? Is it lack of availability or Riverbend? Or?
Yeah, and some require specialists that already have specialists up there. So for continuity care, it's best practice that they go up there. But another way of looking at it is when you have a clogged artery, which if like Riverbend is full, then you have a backup from that point. And then we end up feeling the burden by having to go farther and farther out for transfers. Portland is generally the place that we go to.
Were you able to charge by mile?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Whether we get reimbursed from Medicare or Medicaid.
So transfers, do they happen throughout a 24-hour block, or are they pretty much daylight hours?
We tried to get them there to it, and we've been having really strong conversations with the Peace Health Network locally about when we're looking at transfers, anything that we deem high critical patients like strokes, heart attacks, traumas, then that's not a question. That we'll get them on the road and get them there anytime, day, night, whatever, running, sleep, because we know we're the only game in town. The flip side of that is if we have somebody with osteomyelitis, infection of a bone, does it need to go 2 o'clock in the morning, risking the patient, risking the crew, at the most dangerous highway in the state of Oregon, at the dangerous time with animals and critters? I mean, when you list the cons and pros of doing a transfer, that's non-emergent. So we try to schedule those more during the day, and that's where we have the part-time employees for that too.
I noticed it seemed like most of your activity occurred between, say, 8 and 3 in the afternoon. Is that fair?
I think our transfer volume, actually, when I looked at the data, was more from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. is where we really get the majority of our transfers. Our call volume, it really is pretty much any time of the day now. I mean, gone are the days where we'd be on shift for 48 hours and not have a call. I mean, I can remember 15 years ago being on a 40-hour shift and not run a single call, which I haven't seen that in 5, 10 years. Our call volume is just increasing, has been increasing over the years.
I think one of the numbers that jumped out at me was the 9/11 response no patient transport, about 175. I mean, it's almost a third of the total call volume at 500. Is that, I mean, what do you attribute that to?
A large percentage of it is attributed to our population base and lift assist, public assist. You can look at our call logs daily, and there's a large majority that we're going out and assisting our elderly population back to the feet. Whether that's a social economical issue because they don't have support or anybody to help them, and then of course 911 is the last option, or sometimes the only option for people, and we get called for that. And then no other questions on that. The ASA report, again, we're 95% and above with our call volumes, definitely meeting and above expectations for our reports. MIH continues to grow. Your call volume was higher than last year. And the combined training report was attached, as well as the combined vehicle and fleet report. Any questions on those items?
Now back on the calls, nice to see Sunnyside Valley did respond to animals, assist animals. Just one of these things that.
That's what we do.
There's always the proverbial cat in the tree. A lot of times, if it is certain types of animals, we judge the owners
and how the owners are going to react. And if the owners will put themselves in peril, we're trained and equipped to do so. So we'll go ahead and take care of that so we're not going out to pick somebody up off the ground.
Good to hear.
To address the fire side, market jumps this entire year. 216 more runs this year than last year. This is actual hard data. I was able to make all the reports. For December, we didn't have any fire calls, which was really nice. We had 4 last year in December. It's always nice to get through Christmas without anybody having a fire at their house. For total fires for the year, we had 12 more. Rescue and EMS, we ran 197 more. And good intent calls, which is our false alarm service calls, saving cats from trees, we had 7 more of those. So we're holding pretty steady on everything as we move forward, as we expected. I went through and made some additional reports. You can find our main numbers on page 57. One report I really wanted to look at, and I wanted to draw the board's attention to. I know you guys had time to read the entire packet 15 times like I did. Page 105, 106, and 107 was our primary action report. This is not necessarily what we were dispatched for. This is what we did when we got on scene, and this comes from reporting and things like that. So other than traffic control, which we do quite a bit also on scene, but our 2017 to 2018 to 2019, where we have listed provided BLS. In 17 we were 138, in 18 we were 187, and in 19 we were 454. So we're doing a lot more of the providing BLS and helping out on that. When you look at our extinguishment by fire service personnel, which is we showed up and put out the fire at somewhere. For 17 and 18, both of them there were 34, and then in 19 it was 57. This data is a lot better. We're getting more fires, but we're getting on top of them a lot faster. Then I went page by page by page, and I apologize for so many of the incident type reports getting in there. There was a clerical error on my part. I uploaded the wrong document. Something else to look at was the days of week on 124. You can see Saturday and Sunday are our busy times. And then our time of day, it's just kind of an open book. It's going to be when it is. So as we move forward, it's important to look at all that data, and we'll try and get that better for you dialed in. Something else I wanted to report on really quick was the peer support team. That is something that Chief House and I both very much support. Peer support of our firefighters and our partner agencies. In 6 months after we've stood it up, we've had about 87 contacts with 101 total hours spent on those peer supports. That's taking care of our own. And with that, we stood up the EAP utilization, and there's been, in that 6 months, there's been 10 that have used it. And if people need to reach out and use that, we provide that to them. And I fully support it and think it's a great program. The CST and Lori Severance have been quintessential in pushing that through.
So question, those that are using the program, did they reach out to the program, or did other people help them get into the program?
That we give them the opportunity to self-report. Self-reporting, you get, we get a contact that they were used, not what it was, or anything major direct. We do also have the option of sending someone. So I don't believe anybody's sent anybody yet. I've threatened to, but haven't actually done it yet.
Well, then that's peer support.
Right.
One of the guys could be seeing something differently because they work closely with them, and it's like, something's not right, and hey, why don't you go talk with our peer support team?
Yeah.
And I haven't heard that coming down the line that's been generated in that direction. It's mainly been self-involvement.
Okay, good, great.
Without any other questions in operations report?
Thank you.
Okay, just to touch on a couple of things from the admin department regarding IT. We're still working on the Wi-Fi upgrades. We had a gentleman out last week who did some looking at, we've got some equipment in this room that is not wired into the server room downstairs. So we are looking at the option of, we wanted to get a quote to see how much it would cost to get it wired into the network. as opposed to purchasing a new switch. So we're still evaluating the prices there. Western Lane has an issue with, or thought they had an issue with Wi-Fi, but they actually have a couple of access points, and they've switched over to an alternative access point, which is working for them. But this gentleman who came out did go over and take a look at where they were thinking they needed additional Wi-Fi in the truck bay. And so he proposed a fairly expensive wiring job to get that all fixed and upgraded. But after talking to Chief House, it sounds like what's going on at Western Lane with the alternative Wi-Fi is working right now. So we are probably not going to accept this quote. If we need to in the future, they can always update the quote, and that's still an option for us. And we will still work on getting that first access point, which was one of the original additions, fixed, and that's hopefully going to be scheduled for next week. We received 4 proposals in response to the RFP that I sent out for IT services, and last week Chief House, Chief Dickerson, and Shannon Sheets sat down with me, and we interviewed all 4 of the proposals, the companies who submitted proposals. A lot of good people, and they were very interesting interviews. We are very close to making a selection. I am in contact with our legal department to make sure that I, dot my I's and cross my T's, and making sure that, if we put out a notice of intent to one of the proposals, that I copy in the ones who also didn't receive it. And then since the price of the contract will most likely exceed the expenditure permissions of Chief, it will come to the board at a future meeting to approve the new contract and the dollar amount. So that will be coming up. Moving on to just some general admin stuff. I was contacted by special districts, and they did have openings for the board practices assessment. Come to find out that SVFR actually did one in 2016, and they only allow each district to do that once to get the 4% discount on insurance. So since it was done in the past, then Sayusla Valley does not have the opportunity to do that again. However, Western Lane does. So I have, they wanted to get a couple of different dates, and I thought it's a 90-minute process, and I thought, well, let's try to tag it on to before a board meeting. So they have April 23rd available, so I booked that for 4 p.m. on April 23rd for Western Lane to have that board practices assessment, and they will send someone out to do that. And so we'll provide snacks for you, since that might be a long afternoon.
Going at one time we'll need discount.
Yes. Then at the annual conference that's coming up in early February, just to report on which directors are attending. On the Western Lane side, we have Directors Farnsworth, Russell, and Webb are attending. And Director Murphy, are you going to be attending wearing a different hat? I've seen you at other...
Undecided yet.
Okay. SVFR Director Spade will be attending, and for pre-conference, Director Spade and Director Russell will be attending the pre-conference. On the staff side, we have Chief Schick, Chief House, and Holly will be attending. They booked up on their registrations really quick, so not all of us could get in. And yes, and today was the deadline to release hotel rooms. So there was an opportunity for a couple of us to actually get in, but we had to release our hotel rooms in case we didn't. So that's where we stand on that. Wanted to talk a little bit about the policy for reimbursing the directors for mileage and meals. So the way we see it is, as you are traveling, the district will reimburse your mileage to and from the conferences and your meals on the road, but not the meals of your spouse or significant other. and that includes the meals at the conference, including the banquet and any meals you sign up for where your spouse is with you. We would be happy to invoice you after the event, since we track all that with the conference registration, so we can happily invoice you for those fees. And is there any question on that or discussion? Okay. And it was also brought to my attention that some of you have uniform shirts when you became directors. And if anyone would like a uniform shirt for SVFR, Western Lane Ambulance, we are welcome to Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority, one team. Just let us know if you're interested. And so when we're doing, right before the board meeting, I invite Director Polisi and Director Russell in to review the financials for SVFR and Western Lane Ambulance. But I do not have a representative from Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority to come in and approve the statements and financials. So I was hoping to get one of you to volunteer to come in once a month prior to the board meeting to go over those financials with me.
Yeah, just appoint Director Yesky since you're not here to defend yourself.
As chair of that board, I'd like to see Director Yesney consider it, and I'll be happy to speak to him.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll work in that direction. Then we also would like to have a meeting with the policy committee. And the policy committee consists of Directors Farnsworth, Webb, Hickson, and Green. And this is in preparation to us getting into the Lexipol policy, working on that. So I believe that the labor negotiations have been meeting regularly on Thursdays at 3 p.m. But after talking to Chief, I don't believe there's going to be a meeting a week from today on January 30th. So I was wondering if those directors on the policy committee would be willing to meet at 3 p.m. next Thursday, January 30th.
It works for me.
I have a conflict with the City Transportation Committee, and the City Expo starts at 5.
Okay.
So I'm not available that day.
I'm not available either.
Okay, so would you like us to just send out like a doodle poll and try to get something lined up
That's
for
what
maybe
we
the
did.
following week?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll continue to work on that. Then we also, every year, Department of Justice puts out a series of classes for budget law, and through the month of February in various communities around the state. And the two closest to here are February 13th in Eugene and February 20th in Coos Bay. And staff will be attending, some staff will be attending the one in Eugene, and some staff will be attending the one in Coos Bay. And if any directors are interested in attending Oregon budget law, you are more than welcome to join us.
Is it going to be the same class as
It is the same classes you attended.
What was the Coos Bay date?
Excuse me?
Was there, you said a Coos Bay?
the 20th?
Coos Bay is February 20, and Eugene is February 13th.
And I went last year, and it's an eye-opener.
It's an all-day class, starts at 9 o'clock, ends at 3:30. They break an hour for lunch, and they cover it from A to Z.
I'm sorry, you mentioned the date for the Eugene.
Eugene is February 13th.
Thank you.
So just let us know if you're interested. You're welcome to carpool with us, or if you want to drive your own vehicle, you can do that too. Next is we have set the date for the Sayula Valley Fire and Western Lane Ambulance Awards Banquet. It will be held on April 18th, which is a Saturday, at the Elks Lodge. It will be a nice evening out. with a dinner, and there will be awards, and there will be a DJ with dancing following the awards.
I've seen Larry dance, it's worth going.
Yeah, just a watch.
You have a flyer on your tables, so you are invited. And that's all I have.
I just have a couple of questions. With the IT proposal, this room being an example, not knowing if wired or wired, whoever we do contract with, it would be great if they didn't keep the institutional knowledge up here, but that they document exactly what they've installed and where they've installed it, and what the capabilities are. Because if something happens to that key person when we change contractors, we don't want to have to start all over again. And so that history is really important. So I hope that whatever proposal we look at has that kind of design for us, whether it's blueprints or.
Well, a lot of what they do is network support and computer support, and the wiring for Wi-Fi and wiring for security cameras are outside that scope.
Okay.
So those are additional but they are usually included in on working through those projects.
Right.
But I understand what you're saying, and we are doing just that in trying to get all of this up to date.
Sure, and the same thing is true of the network software. You know, they need to be giving us information so that we can hand it to a different IT professional who can see what software parameters they set. It's the same thing with wires, it's just in the air.
Yes.
Wi-Fi. The other thing I know is that there's a big technological push into mesh systems for Wi-Fi, and maybe that's what Chief House has over there at.
We do not have a mesh network, but there is a mesh network that we can access here, and it's mainly through disaster management at this point.
Sure.
I mean, do you have anything else to add to that, Chief Dickerson?
The mesh network is up and it is secure. It's just, it requires some specialized stuff to log into and lock on. So the mesh network, as it is a possibility at this time, we've kind of locked it down just for the EOC usage, when that should come up. If it's something that we'd like to look at, I can certainly bring in the group that operates the mesh network for us.
There's also some new sophisticated equipment out there for Wi-Fi extension that might help some of our hard reach areas, like garages and so forth. Thank you.
We received a thank you letter. Do I have to read that?
I think maybe.
Isn't there?
Tier.
It's in your board packet, and it was a nice letter, so we put it in your board packet from Eve Stidham. So thank her for that letter. It's a very nice letter.
Very sweet.
If I may add that Rob Chance went to the National Fire Academy and also in correspondence put a thank you letter to the board, because it's just been valuable training. And if I can ask Rob, if you have something to add to it, being that you're here present today, what you took out of the National Fire Academy and the training that you went to, and don't shake your head no.
Yeah, I learned a lot. The class wasn't what I was expecting, but I did learn a lot. It's just a great resource being able to head over there and network with some of the heads of their division as far as training goes, and being able to just network with them. And you know, it's going to be a valuable resource for me moving forward. And I encourage, I've already encouraged others that I work with to try and make it over there. It's pretty awesome. It's amazing. Food's not the best, but everything else is.
Yeah, the food is not exactly.
I think that shows how holding what the board is here for is to make sure that our guys are the best training that we can have, and have them go back and share the knowledge and encourage other people to attend is one of our biggest reasons for being here.
Congratulations on getting through that. Are there any additional comments on the directors on the fire side anymore?
No.
Nope.
Any comments on the Western Wayne ambulance side?
You gotta do it at some point.
Future agenda is February 27th.
And would like to announce that following the meeting tonight, we will be moving into executive session per ORS 192.660 2D for labor negotiation discussions, and do not anticipate returning into session small.
Before we adjourn,
Before we adjourn, I do have something that I'd like to announce to both boards as opposed to the Woolfield board. My time has been probably excellent here at SPFR and with WLFEA. I have been offered a position with a city department and have accepted to go between their deputy chief. So it's a bump up for me, as well as a little more integrated position, and kind of goes along with my end career goal. After an extensive talk with the chief, there were tears on one side of the table, but
You're gonna be fine.
it's an exciting move both for me and my family, and I just wanted you guys to hear it. I know you heard the rumors, but I wanted you to hear it from me, and I wanted to tell the boards before I released it to the volunteers. So.
See, you should let me adjourn the meeting first then.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
And you didn't bring cake and ice cream?
Cake and ice cream
Next
for
board.
first.
All right. If there's nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting for this evening.
You was like